What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. It's time again for another episode of Banlist Roulette. Ever wonder how Konami decides to ban, limit, semi-limit, or even unlimit some of the most controversial cards in Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, here we have their patented method, and we are going to see how that plays out today. For people new to the channel, what we do is every time we have a new ban list around the corner, we like to take some of the most contentious cards that might get banned or limited or semi-limited on the upcoming ban list and see where the Wheel of Fate will put them, and sometimes it's actually been frighteningly accurate, so let's go ahead and see how it plays out. So first up on Banlist Roulette, we have none other than Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. No one likes being locked out of the extra deck. It's no fun. People want to actually try to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Against one another, and so when you have a deck like Dragon Link running around that's able to just make a Union Carrier, drop a Buster Sword, and you basically just lose the game for no reason, I think it's definitely time for a card like that to go. We'll have to see what happens because obviously we have no control over this. It's all up to the wheel. So let's go ahead and see what the wheel has to say about Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. Okay, so Dragon Buster Destruction Sword going to 1 would do absolutely nothing. Dragon Link may have lucked out with that one, but that doesn't mean there aren't other hits that might be coming its way, because next up we have GUARDRAGON ELPY. If there's a card that should be hit in Dragon Link, because let's be honest, I think we're all sick of Dragon Link at this point, I think ELPY is the prime candidate. There's plenty of other like cards in the starter category that you could hit, but there's just so many cards that will effectively do the same thing that I really don't think you can justify hitting anything else but ELPY. It tutors everything out of the deck. It basically can be made with any of the cards in your deck, so I just think it's time for this card to go. Dragon Link needs a hit somehow, and ELPY seems to be the most sensible solution, but this isn't about being sensible, this is about Banlist Roulette. Lots of limits today on Banlist Roulette, and ELPY going to 1 would also accomplish absolutely nothing. Okay, so Destruction Sword and ELPY both got a pass, basically, but what about HALKY-Fibrax? All these combo decks want HALKY-Fibrax as being one of the most powerful enablers ever. The card's been legal for almost all of 2020, and if you thought 2020 couldn't get worse, it's probably not going anywhere. The card should be banned, yes, but is it going to? Probably not. If I had to take a guess, I doubt anything's going to happen to it, so let's see if that's true. And just like that, Crystron HALKY-Fibrax goes to 1. Does anyone care? No, because 1 is typically all you need, and that does, again, nothing. So Destruction Sword, ELPY, and HALKY-Fibrax are all limited, so essentially nothing has changed so far. What about Link Cross? Can we at least get a Link Cross ban? I think that would be justified. Yeah, sure, they're banning all these other tuner monsters, so HALKY-Fibrax can live. But that doesn't mean Link Cross can survive, right? I mean, I think people can do without an extra negate on top of everything else in tandem with, like, Metal Marcher. Please? Please? Oh my god, did you guys see how close that was? Can we get a replay on that? There is no way that that should have gone to limited. That's so frustrating. Link Cross to 1, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, this sucks. Okay, so like every single card we've wanted banned has been limited, which effectively doesn't do much considering those cards are mostly played at 1 anyway and still would be just as oppressive as they are now. So we have 1 card left. It's Smoke Grenade. Infernoble Knight players are going to be the only one upset about this, but I think even Infernoble Knight players can agree that this card is just oppressive, ripping cards out of your opponent's hand, multiple cards, by the way. It's not like it's just 1, and you get the knowledge of what's in their hand. This card's just unfair. This card should not exist. Infernoble Knight without Smoke Grenade wouldn't actually be the worst, and so I think the deck would be fine. You just don't have this super unfair element in Smoke Grenade. Can we at least get this banned, please? Hey, there we go. We finally got 1 ban on the list. It's probably the ban that matters the least out of everything, but I guess it's somewhat good. I guess it's the first ban we've gotten, so I don't think we can complain. True King of all Calamities is up next. Boy, does this card need to go. This card is just the embodiment of Degenerate. This card makes it so that your opponent can activate effects. They basically can't attack. If they can't deal with it, they can't do anything for realistically 2 turns since most decks are so monster heavy. Yeah, there are a couple outs to it, but just because there's outs to a card doesn't justify a card existing. The reason I don't think they're really going to hit this card is because of Virtual World, and Virtual World is still kind of new, although I guess in the past they have hit some cards. We'll have to see. This is going to be a weird one. I really want this card banned. I think a lot of people do, so let's see what happens. Okay, now to be fair, True King of all Calamities going to 1 isn't the worst, right? I mean, Virtual World does have some setups where it goes into double VFD, and so by doing so, I think putting it to 1 means they don't have the recovery of going into a second one if their opponent outs the first one. I guess it's a start. I rather would have just seen it banned, but you know, the wheels will knows all. Next up on Banlist Roulette is Miscellaneousaurus. If there was a card to hit in Dinosaur, I guess you could argue that maybe Oviraptor or Fossil Dig should be hit because those are the deck starters. That's where a lot of the consistency comes from. Hell, in the OCG, they have it hit. But Miscellaneousaurus tells a different story. In the TCG, Miscellaneousaurus has actually been limited before, so I guess it's not crazy for them to re-limit it since they've already shown that they'll do it once. But Miscellaneousaurus, again, if we're keeping with this trend of unfair cards that prevent the opponent from interacting, like True King of all Calamities, like Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, you know, Miscellaneousaurus kind of falls into that same category. So many players, even Dinosaur players, will tell you that this card is so degenerate and unhealthy, making it so that your opponent can't interact with anything that you do. You could ban the card, but that might be a little bit harsh. Limiting it might be fine. It would reduce the likelihood that you'd see it in your opening hand, so you'd have to burn a search effect to be able to actually get to it, and that might be fine, but let's go ahead and see where Miscellaneousaurus ends up. All right, unlimited. Miscellaneousaurus is not going anywhere. Dinosaur players can rejoice over this one. Next up on my list is Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. I know Pendulum players would be really excited about this one. With Blazing Vortex coming out early next year, it makes sense because there's Metal Foes support in the set that they would want to release the best Metal Foes card ever printed. So I feel like naturally it makes sense that this card would go to 1. We've obviously seen that Konami is willing and ready to put cards down on the ban list just so they can promote new sets. That's obviously what the ban list is for. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, and I would actually be shocked if they didn't do it. But let's see where Heavy Metal Foes Electromite ends up. Oh, fuck. We do not need 3 Electromite. Hold on, Wheel. Hold on. Pendulum players out there are probably just, like, creaming themselves, but no. We cannot have 3 Electromite. That is absolutely not okay. Now, next up, we have a group of cards that actually pay homage to some of the former best decks of the format about a year ago now, one of which being ORCUST HARP. A lot of people have been talking about this card to come back to 1, mainly because when you look at it in context of the rest of the metagame, would it do much? Not really. I think Harp Horror would be fine. If you have 1 Harp Horror, it's like you have infinite because you can recycle it, which means your engine is always going to be online. The Phantom Knights recently came out, and PK Orcus was actually a deck. So the thing is, this actually like inadvertently boosts like PK support, so it could be an interesting decision, and I think people would just like to see Orcus and Dingirsu back in the metagame to see what they could come up with. So let's go ahead and see where ORCUST HARP Horror ends up. Going to 2, interesting. That would definitely give Orcus a boost, and I think people would start to look at it as a much more serious contender. Would that be enough to put it over the top? I'm not sure, but that would definitely be a lot better than just putting it to 1. Now, next up is Salamangreat Mirage Stallion. Salamangreat hasn't been doing much of anything as of late. It's actually a widely played deck in the online environment, but in terms of how well the deck performs, it's not the best. And so I think giving Salamangreat some of its old support back might be nice. Sure, you could put like Gazelle to 2 or Circle to 2, and that's a nice consistency boost, but I think people would like to see Mirage Stallion back. It basically tutors for anything in the deck. It's a nice way to interact and remove some of your opponent's threats. I think putting it to 1 is fine. I think the OCG has it at 1, and again, Salamangreat hardly does much of anything over there. Again, completely different format, but I don't think Mirage Stallion would hurt. Let's see where it ends up. Oh, 3 Mirage Stallion. I don't even know if that would be enough to put Salamangreat back in the top tier because, man, so many decks now just do so many unfair things, and Salamangreat isn't one of them, but talk about a consistency boost. People would love that. Keeping in line with the former best decks, next up we have Thunder Dragon Colossus. Now, for the record, I don't think Thunder Dragon Colossus should come back. Some people argue that 1 copy of Colossus is fine. The OCG has it at 1, and Thunder is like okay. okay, but I just don't like Thunder Dragon Colossus's card design. The fact that it basically doesn't allow your opponent to search, the fact that it has built-in protection, which makes it very annoying to interact with. It's just one of these cards that I feel like really limits the player's ability to play the game, similar to some other cards that we've talked about, and I just don't like card design like that, but some people want it back, so I figured we'd go ahead and see where it ends up. Sorry, Thunder Dragon players, you guys aren't catching a break anytime soon. Now, wrapping up this list of former best cards, we have Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage. Konami's been very forthcoming with releasing a lot of the Sky Striker cards that have made their way onto the list in one way or another. So people have been talking about Engage coming off, and I don't think it's the worst idea. One, Engage isn't the end of the world. The OCG has Sky Striker at almost full power, and the deck doesn't really do a whole lot. I mean, the deck is okay, so maybe putting Engage to 1 wouldn't be the end of the world. You can recycle it with Kagari. There's a lot of ways to access it, so maybe give this deck some love. I don't know. Let's see where it ends up. All right, Engage is going to 1. I'll be very curious to see how quickly people change their minds once that actually happens. Mystic Mine is a card that is so polarizing and divisive. Some people think the card is just absurdly broken and unfair, but these are usually the people that are playing combo decks that don't allow the opponent to interact anyway, so I don't think they really have a valid opinion. There's also the other group of people that think that Mystic Mine is fine because you can just have spell and trap removal, but the counter argument to that is, again, you have to actually be playing the removal in the form of a spell and trap and actually having your main deck. It's a very, very divisive card, and for good reason. Mystic Mine players obviously don't want to see this banned because it would just completely ruin their deck, but a lot of people have been calling out for it to get banned for quite some time, and so let's see if this is finally going to be the time where Mystic Mine gets hit to some degree. Let's see what happens. Wow, Mystic Mine going to 1. That's actually kind of interesting. So it makes Mystic Mine burn virtually unplayable because you need multiple copies to stall out the opponent. But you could still play this as like a side deck card to stop some of the combo decks, and if they don't have an out to it, you just win anyway. Terraforming allows you to get to it. Metaverse allows you to get to it. So even though you only have 1 copy, you have multiple ways to get to it, set rotation included. So interesting. That's an interesting one. I'd be curious to know what you guys think down in the comments. So we're getting near the end of the video, and Called by the Grave, when people saw that this card was limited on the last Forbidden and Limited list, people were torn. Some people thought this was great because combo decks didn't need a way to stop hand traps because that was just one of the ways that they could do that. But the thing is, combo decks have kind of like transcended the need to even play Called by the Grave because the way they just interact naturally, they're able to play through multiple hand traps. When these decks can play through stuff like Nibiru, which Called by the Grave doesn't even work against, by the way, you know that these decks are on a completely another level. But some people like Called by the Grave from a control perspective, because being able to use it as like a DD Crow, being able to negate the effects of like another card that's already on the field, the card's very flexible. The card is actually very powerful and at times very fair. So it's interesting to see that this card was limited. It's been like all over the place. It's been semi-limited. It's been unlimited. So let's see what happens. I'd be curious to know. All right, so Called by the Grave getting semi-limited, you know, to be honest, I could 100% see that happening. And it wouldn't be an episode of Banlist Roulette if we didn't cover everyone's favorite hand trap, Max C. Some people feel like Max C is okay to come back to 3. Those people should be immediately excommunicated and castrated with fishing knives so they are incapable of reproducing, but nonetheless, it's tradition, it's the most divisive card in Yu-Gi-Oh!, and it's always fun to get a good discussion going in the comments as to whether or not people think the card should go to 3, should stay at 0, or be at 1 or 2 for some reason. I don't get that, but nonetheless, let's see what happens. Let's hope we don't cry because I'm already getting PTSD already. Oh, thank God. Whew, we dodged that one, ladies and gentlemen. You know, 2020 hasn't been the best year. Some would say it's been a very shitty year, but we can at least take solace in the fact knowing that Max C is gonna stay banned. So guys, that's gonna wrap it up for another episode of Banlist Roulette. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to let me know down in the comments what you guys think, what cards you want to see get hit on the upcoming December ban list. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video entertaining, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.